Chapter 6. Mr. Pudgins in the Flying Bathtub. I was fiddling with my radio and slowly getting undressed for bed, but not very enthusiastically. It was a hot August night, as only an August night can be. Mother and Dad had gone out for dinner at the Smiths. Dad had moaned about having to wear a coat on such a night, but he had it on when he left. Mr. Pudgins had discarded his to give Jane and Pete their bath. From the bathroom, I could hear splashing noises and high squeals. That was from Pete and Jane. "John, come here!" That was Mr. Pudgins, and he sounded desperate. I ran. There was Mr. Pudgins, on his knees, hanging on to the bathtub, while Janie and Pete were playing around in a tub full of bubble bath. Mr. Pudgins' nose was quivering, and when that large a thing quivers, everything seems to. "Grab the tub," he ordered. "Must be some gas in that bubble bath. The bathtub's trying to float away." Sure enough, it was. It came loose from the wall with an awful rip, and I grabbed hold of the side and hung on. Petey and Jane clapped their hands and squealed. "Let go, Johnny! We want to go up!" But I hung on, only my feet were now off the floor. "Hopeless," muttered Mr. Pudgins. "Might as well let her go. Climb in, Johnny." "But my clothes!" "They'll dry, lad. Do drop your shoes over." I popped into the tub, and we floated out through the window and into the sky. I was in the front near the faucets, Petey behind me, and then Janie, sitting on the back edge of the tub, smoking his pipe, and very unconcerned was Mr. Pudgins. "Get the right faucet a twist, Johnny, or we'll sail out of town." I did, and we gently turned right. It was wonderful, much better than a plane, and it was such a hot night that we didn't feel the least bit cold. Down below we could see the Johnsons' big police dog, and he barked like mad as we went over. Janie dropped a big glob of bubbly stuff on his nose, and he rubbed and rubbed it in the grass trying to get it off. Mr. Hinkleberry was out hoeing his garden, and he opened his mouth so wide when he saw us floating in the tub, I yearned to toss some bubbles in the hole. "Lovely evening, sir," said Mr. Pudgins. "Lovely." Mr. Hinkleberry said nothing. He just gasped. "A little to the left now, Johnny," said Mr. Pudgins. I turned the hot water faucet left, and around we went. I just kept on turning, and we went round and round. "More, more!" yelled Petey. I began to feel dizzy. "No, that is quite enough," said Mr. Pudgins. "Gently left, my lad." So I gently turned left. Two sparrows came and sat on the edge of the tub, and Janie held out her soapy hand. Each of them pecked at the white stuff, and then sat back and scolded her. It smelled of carnations, but I don't imagine it would taste good even to a bird. Right in front of us now was the Smiths' house, and I knew Mother and Dad must be sitting in the living room sweltering, but they might have been out sailing in a tub with us. "Let's go lower and just float around the house," I said. "How do we do that?" "I suppose you might pull the plug," said Mr. Pudgins. "Not too much now." I pulled the plug, and sure enough, we went gradually down. Janie whispered, "Look, there's Mommy in the kitchen. Hello, Mommy." She almost fell out as she tried to knock on the window. Mother looked up just as Mr. Pudgins' face went by the window, glowing in the light of his pipe. She looked startled. "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy!" shrieked Pete as we passed a living room window. But Dad was talking to Mr. Smith and didn't hear. We could see Mother rushing in from the kitchen, talking excitedly. Then as we drifted by the other side of the living room, Dad was saying, "You must have been sampling some of the drinks. Have you ever heard the Leichhardt?" That was Mr. Smith's name. They both laughed. Mother turned away from the window, and Janie waved enthusiastically at her. But I don't suppose Mother could see us. Instead, she only saw Mr. Pudgins and his pipe as he sailed past, sitting on the end of the tub, his legs crossed, and leaning back to enjoy the summer evening. We couldn't stay longer, but we heard Mother say as we drifted down the street, "Look! Look! Didn't you see that?" But of course they hadn't. I stuck the plug back in the hole, and we floated up near the treetops again. "There's Mike!" yelled Petey. "Hi, Mike! See me, Mike? I'm floating!" Mike, who was 4 like Pete, stopped his bike and looked around, and then looked some more for Pete. But he never thought of looking up, so he didn't see us. On the corner of Main and Pearl, we dipped a little lower, and Jimmy Sturrett, a reporter friend of Dad's, came driving along in his flivver. Pete shouted, "Hey, Jimmy! Jimmy! Jimmy!" And Janie joined right in. Jane's and Pete's shrieks were so loud that Jimmy did look up for just a second. Then, wham, he crashed into the car ahead. As we floated up over a building, we heard Jimmy saying, "But officer, I tell you it was a bathtub." "Bathtubs, is it?" came the officer's voice more softly as we drifted away. "Flying discs, flying platters, and now flying bathtubs? What won't you think of next?" Mr. Pudgins smiled a little, and so did I. We were floating toward home when Petey saw some smoke coming from a chimney. "Look, a fire! Let's go see, please. I want to see a chimney from up here," said Janie. "All right, kiddies, just one look. Then turn a little bit that way, Johnny." So I did. Why would anyone have a fire on a hot night like this, I mused. "An incinerator, I suppose, my boy." Mr. Pudgins stopped puffing on his pipe to twist and look ahead. "Not too close now." "What's a incinerator? Something bad?" "Oh, it burns up rubbish in cans and things like that, stupid," I said, looking back at him. That did it. I wasn't watching closely enough, and we were stuck, right on top of that chimney. Woof! Everyone got a mouthful of smoke, and then it stopped. I guess we had plugged up the hole. "Now this is a predicament," muttered Mr. Pudgins, "but keep calm." Janie hung way over the side. "Let's slide down the roof. I've always wanted to slide down the roof." "I want to fly." Pete began kicking his feet, throwing foam about. "Let's fly." "Say, look down there," I shouted. "Look at the smoke coming out of the house. Boy, a real fire." "No, not exactly, John," said Mr. Pudgins. "But since the smoke can't come out of the chimney, it is going through the house. We had better get away from here. Let's rock the ship. Right? Now left. Now right." "I'm getting awfully hot," said Janie, because the water was heating up. About then, a man rushed out of the house, looked up at the chimney, and just stared. I suppose it was something of a surprise seeing the bathtub perched like a lollipop on the end of his chimney. We could hear sirens. "Get off of there! Do you hear me?" The man acted mad, jumping up and down, shaking his fist. "Get off of there!" he yelled. "That is just what we are endeavoring to do, my man," answered Mr. Pudgins calmly. "All right, children, rock. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The water sloshed, and the tub began to wiggle. It scraped along the edge, and then we were off. The siren sounded mighty close. We drifted into a soft little cloud, just as the engine screeched to a stop. "All right, men, hoses out." It was pretty exciting. We pushed part of the cloud aside and looked right down at the engines. "It was a bathtub," shouted the man. "Must be a smoke case." "Too much smoke will do it, mister," said a fireman. "Get the dock, Mac." As we floated off, the man was screaming even more angrily, "But it was a bathtub!" And then a little softer, I think. "Homeward, Johnny. Bedtime, I'm sure," directed Mr. Pudgins. We were almost there when Janie whispered in surprise, "Johnny, the water! Look at the water!" "Good heavens," said Mr. Pudgins. "It's almost gone." Just as he said that, we started down, down, down. "The plug! The plug!" I yelled. "Who's got the plug?" "I dropped it," wailed Petey. "I dropped it right over the side when we were in that cloud." "Get set to land," said Mr. Pudgins. "Easy does it, lads." "Oh, not a tree!" But there we were, perched in a big old maple tree about 6 feet off the ground. "Where are we?" whispered Petey. "I think it's the McCrackens, and they've got an awfully mean dog." "How'll we ever get out?" I asked. "You'll climb down and get the hose. Surely they'll have their hose around on such a night, and I'll pop out and find a stone to fit the drain," said Mr. Pudgins. He disappeared over the side and waved to us from below. "Quiet, Petey. Not even a whisper, Janie. We don't want to get that dog started," I whispered. And I slid down the tree. It was dandy for climbing. I scouted around, and sure enough, I found the hose in a corner of the yard. As quietly as I could, I pulled it toward the tree. Mr. Pudgins was already seated on the end of the tub. I could see his pipe glowing. I poked the hose up at him, then ran back to turn it on. It was going full blast when I heard the dog. Wow, did I take off fast for the tree with that hound right behind me. One slip and he would have fresh meat. Me. Luckily, my bare feet were good for a hold on the tree, and I made it up and into the tub. It was filling fast, and I could see Mr. Pudgins reach in his pocket, pull out a tiny envelope, and empty some powdery stuff in the water. Slowly we started to float up. The hose pulled loose from the tub, and the full force of the water hit the dog right in the face. He yelled, and the back door of the house opened. Mr. McCracken came running out. As we turned toward home, he could hear Mr. McCracken shouting to his wife, "Maggie! Maggie! Come see what darn kid has done! Hung our hose in the maple tree!" We all laughed out loud. In fact, we were still laughing when we sailed in the window and settled down in the usual corner of the bathroom. Mr. Pudgins got to work and quickly had everyone snug in bed. Later on, I heard Mother and Dad come in because they were arguing about Mother's behavior at the party. "I did see a bathtub," she said crossly. "Ha ha 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 ha!" roared Dad. "Listen, you must have been in that state where some people see pink elephants, but a bathtub? Ha ha ha! I'll have you know," said Mother, "that I had only tomato juice." "Maybe it was the heat," said Dad, "but it sure was a funny idea of yours." He started to laugh again, and I heard Mother say, "Hush!" And then I drifted back to sleep. Quite an adventure to have in a bathtub. Please join me for the next chapter.